Hello and welcome to Agents Across the Pond. Now, this business rewards discipline, consistency, and the ability to perform when it really matters most. Now, talent helps, however, luck comes and goes, but showing up, doing the work, and earning the trust of clients, well, that is what builds a lasting career. Every week, we bring together the perspectives of the UK and the US, having open, honest conversations about what it takes to succeed within a state agency and the real estate space. Now, we're talking about the wins, the setbacks, the lessons, and the standards that we hold ourselves to. This isn't about hype. It's not about shortcuts. It's just real conversations with people who are committed to getting better within the property space. My name's Liam Gretton.
And I'm Daniel Smith, and welcome to the podcast this week. So we're talking, we want to touch base on a couple of new things that sort of keep people in the business, especially for new agents, and have a little bit of a conversation about like what made us stay in the business, because it's not an easy business to start off in. I think most people, when they're getting into a new job and a new business, they're really, you know, they don't understand the gravity of what you're getting yourself into. So today it's kind of like what successes did you see in your business at the start, Liam, that sort of helped you decide that this is going to work and this is going to help me stay within the industry?
I think initially, mate, it was the confidence that people bought into the service and people bought into what made us different than your traditional estate agents. Now, locally, I've got friends who run estate agencies. I seem to have built a bit of a network, and you do just get about and you talk to people, and you end up collaborating on sales, or you connected in some way. And we operate very differently to the traditional model. And when you first enter a space, like bear in mind, I never came from an estate agency background. I was in the army. I fell into this. Um, my kind of biggest barrier was, will people buy into bespoke agency, having a personal agent, having that one point of contact, capping how many listings we have? And they did. And for me, it was that confidence of, right, this is going to work. We just need to promote it, market it, connect with people, do what we say we're going to do. And I'm a big believer that if you say you're going to do it, no
Mhm.
messing about. Um, so I think for me, mate, that's where I looked at it, was that confidence that sellers bought into it and went, yeah, this is okay. And same with buying agency. Buying agency, as we know, we've spoken about it before, it's not really a thing in the UK. But then having clients, you know, leave commitment deposits and buy into a service of, we are the boots on the ground. Um, whether that be investment, relocating, we're just kind of building up something that we've not spoke about, you're not aware of, but building up the overseas buying agency. So we know we're not too far away from Spain, 3 hours on a plane. We're then going to start providing services where you own kind of a place in the sun, escape to the country. You're moving to Spain, right? We'll get involved. We'll come on the viewings. We'll book the flights. We'll come out with you and have that whole experience. So
Mhm.
the estate agency for us as a bespoke agent is now fully secure that we provide absolutely everything. But you have to buy into us. You have to buy into. We are an expert in your corner.
Yeah, that makes complete sense. We have a similar sort of concept in the sense that like a lot of people here in New Jersey will have a Florida license, and people are happy to jump on a plane with their clients who they're selling a house here in New Jersey and they're moving down to Florida. They have their Florida license. They know where they're going. They head down there and they take them on tours to see houses down in Florida, and they have dual licenses from both states. It's interesting like sort of concept. One thing that I was gonna sort of go back to is when you get into this business, I think,
Yeah.
especially a lot of realtors here, and they're really not understanding what they're getting themselves into, um, and it's a naivety thing, I think, because a lot of people think that this is a job where you walk in and there's, I mean, I even had a person who called me last week actually, who was like, "Oh, you got a job available with your brokerage?" I'm like, "Yeah, I don't have any positions available like for admin roles. They're kind of all filled at the moment." But I have openings all the time for people who want to become agents. So if you want to go get your license and become an agent, you can. However, there's a lot of stuff you need to learn. When you become an agent here, there's no money coming through the door. you're actually going to be expending money. So, that's the naivety I'm talking about right there. And for some people, it's like like they have no idea that that's what they're getting themselves into. They even go to real estate school without the knowledge that when I get my real estate license, if I want to be a real estate agent, that there's no money coming through the door, and it's that investment into the business like we talked about. And I guess my point is if you remember back to the first time when you were getting into real estate and you're trying to build the pipeline, it's that having that naivety, but also not having that pipeline. But one thing that just from my knowledge of you is I know that you're an extremely well drilled person, from the way that you from your career in the army has given you a set of skills that make you a very driven person just in society to go and create for yourself, which not a lot of people have, which is why people do the 9 to 5, right? Like people go and do their 9 to 5 jobs because it's like, hey, I've got given this role. I know what my salary is going to be every week. I know what my income's going to be. I don't have to worry. I just show up, do my job, leave at the end of the day. And obviously, sometimes that job gets a little bit more overbearing because your boss turns around and says, well, I want you to do more things. And then sometimes you'll be in a week where, you don't have as many things on your plate and you kind of get to twiddle your thumbs a little bit and just be sat on a computer or whatever it might be in your day-to-day job. But for us, everything is self-generated. So, your skills of what you acquired from the army allowed you to step into this space and maybe even have that naivety still, right? Of like, oh, this is where I am, this is what I've got to do. But you had the skills to know what to do and go out there and acquire the business. In a space that you sort of kind of created your own niche as well, with it being a bespoke service that you're offering. Not many people are doing that, right? And you've come across that, stumbled into it, like you say, and then from there, grown a much bigger business than you probably anticipated at the time. I'm more focused on like agents or talking to those agents that are stepping into the space, especially from the British side, because I can talk a lot about agents stepping in from the American side. But for you, I think it's valuable for you to talk about, like, especially if you had people who you wanted to join your team, stepping in to the business and what their expectations should be, and then how
Mm.
it can be a success story.
So yeah, we operate very differently here. We've spoken about it before, and I'm sure we'll speak about it again. But in terms of kind of having teams modeled, self-employed agents in the UK, we are still relatively new to some aspect of it. And EXP, and there's others out there, are really kind of leading the way and showing that there can be a difference in a state agency. Now, I've seen plenty of people join. I've seen people join and just kind of go, no, it's not for us. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with as you've said, a 9 to 5, absolutely nothing wrong with that. But you've got to be prepared that when you're launching your own estate agency business, that you're going to have to make some sacrifices. It is going to be a bit of a graft. Um, you have to put yourself out there because no one owes you anything at the end of the day. And I think looking at the US Teams model, yeah, you're right. Someone's coming into the business, um, and the only thing that is happening is it's going to be outgoings until they start making money. I think one of the maybe
That's where you
not
lose a
so
lot of
much,
people.
yeah, but maybe not so much issues with the industry. We're in a phase now, especially in the UK, where self-employed individual accountable agents are launching their own businesses and becoming very successful. But that also has a counter from what we're seeing culturally in terms of selling Sunset, uh, owning Manhattan. People see the money, they see you walking through nice houses, and everyone thinks that the real estate space is that. Like, I only know of one man who has launched his business specifically to target the luxury market. And it took him a year of graft and outgoings to build just an ounce of structure and foundation within that space. Where now he has absolutely developed that space. And to me, he owns luxury property within a self-employed setting, certainly in the north of England. Um, but it's taken him a year to get there. Like he's absolutely grafted at
Does
it.
he consider hiring people as a part of his group to foster a team?
Well, it's with the self-employed model here. it's or especially when you go into that Teams model, and I can only speak about EXP because that's what I'm exposed to. Um, when it comes to the Teams model, I own the team, and let's say Dan, it's Liam Gretton and Co. You come in, you work Liam and Co. Dan Smith is the agent, and then I can pass you leads, and you can build your business. Now you're free to leave me whenever you want and go and become Smith Realty team, um, but you make what you earn, and work's passed out and shared and stuff like that. Yeah, so yeah, I feel like the teams model's certainly growing in the UK. I've not looked into it enough to be able to kind of comment on that. But I think overall, mate, if you're launching a state agency business, it's those three lines of defense we spoke about previously. How the clients feel and you touch and you connect them with you, compliance and audits. I think they're the main body of it.
Mhm.
How do you find the US starting off teams? Because to
Um,
me, it's employed.
yeah, so teams here it's all structured the same way. Like, why would you be a part of a team is a great question, by the way. Like, and I think for any new agents, because we're talking really about new agents here walking into the space and sort of what their expectations are here.
Yeah.
And how it's like a business that you have to invest into. Um, we've already touched base on that on other podcasts, but this is more about like, okay, how do you get involved in the business and how do you stay involved in the business?
Okay.
And I think honestly, the first part for any agency is actually you don't have experience, you don't have a client pool of people walking through the door to give you business, so you don't have a pipeline. The first thing that most agents should do is actually acquire a team that's going to help them and teach them the business. Now, the brokerages do this as well. Like, so you can join a brokerage and the brokerage does it themselves. Then they have training sessions, etc., etc. But what you tend to find is that, you still struggle. You still don't know
Yeah,
how
yeah.
to acquire clients. You still don't know how to put yourself in front of people. So the best model for
That's a
me,
big difference, Dan. That is a big difference in terms of working in an agency and owning an agency, whether that's self-employed, traditional. It's a big difference in client acquisition. Where are they coming from? What's the lead generation streams? Because I can guarantee, even in the US, you are getting the same phone calls as me. Hi, Liam, we've got this incredible AI lead generation system. Or how many leads are you getting? Are you handling them okay? Do you need this? We qualify this. To me, like, I'm personally not interested in that whatsoever. But there is a counter argument of, well, maybe Johnny, who I've got a phone call with on Monday, who does lead generation, can get me some really good qualified leads. Now, to me, if I turn around and said, Johnny, if you can go and get me £1 million listing and it's qualified, it's got legs, we get it on the market and we sell it. Well, you want your little 500 quid for getting the lead, or whatever you want, the cost of that lead.
yeah.
I'll tell you what, I'll give you 20% of the sale commission. To me, that's more incentive to go out and look for it than sitting there and going, well, if we get you 10 leads, it's 200 quid. Like, so yeah.
That's a model that people use as well here. But just going back to what we were talking about with
Sorry,
the
mate.
with the it's okay, no, with the team stuff, is acquiring and joining a team is probably more important than the brokerage, in my opinion, because when you join the brokerage, and we talked about this before and we said this, uh, if a really good lead came to the brokerage's door on a phone call, and that
Yeah.
broker manager, whoever manages that office and that they're in control of the office, which agent do they give that lead to? We talked about that. They give it to the experienced lead that's going to close the deal, right? And so there'll be agents in the office that are top agents. If a really good deal comes across the plate, they're not going to be giving it to a brand new kid who's just walked through the door.
Yeah.
However, that's if it comes through the agency and the broker manager. But if you come a part of a team and the team has a way of acquiring leads themselves because of referrals from other people, their lead generation systems that they've been running themselves over the years that they've been running their business, now they get so much business coming through the door that they've got the higher members of their team that don't want to deal with some of the lower business, but they want that income to stay within their team instead of going out to like the brokerage and just giving it to the brokerage as a lead. So they'll give it to someone who is newer, inexperienced lead that, it's just a $300,000 home sale here in,
Yeah,
New Jersey. Okay, listen, the commission for something like that is going to be around $7,500. Okay, let's give that to our new agent and let him work that, but let's give him the experience as well and handhold him through this process so that when he has questions, you, one, get the opportunity with the leads. Two, you're starting to build your business and get experience. And three, you've got a support system behind you that is helping you and hand-holding you through your initial transactions. Nothing
yeah.
stops that agent from leaving at the end of the day. They're
So
gonna take all their
when
knowledge and then leave at some point potentially, or they might be happy with the lead generation that comes in and then they stay.
I think lead generation, like, and everyone will agree, it is super, super important. And I was given some letters this week, Dan. I went to a property, the seller gave me the letters that she'd received from other agents. And honestly, I read them and thought, like, you're treating clients like kids, the way you're speaking to them within this letter format. Now, when it comes to teams and generating, because I've not bought into the EXP Teams model, I feel like I don't know it as well, but I certainly get where you're coming from in terms of a US basis of building a team. I've just texted a guy called Scott Gunn. Now he runs a EXP Teams model
Uh,
in Margate, of all places. Um, he's built an incredible team there, like 15. Yeah, I'm sure he's got like 15 in his team. Really, really down to earth bloke. I've just texted him to see if he will come on the podcast and talk to us about teams in the UK model and how that works. And more importantly, answering the questions you've got here in terms of how's that lead generation fair for everyone in the office? Do people have postcodes that they've got to stick to? Is there a internal policy of how you dress, how you operate, what you do? How does that office space work as a self-employed estate agent? Um,
that's
I've been on I've been on
really
Scott's podcast, Agents Across the Board, with Ben Moore. Hopefully he comes back and does the favor, but I think that will be an incredible conversation if he texts. Well, I'm
This
hoping
is
he texts.
also why this is why I think it's important for you from a perspective as well in EXP because of how their model works. I'm familiar with it, and honestly, I was just talking when I was watching Argentina versus England the other week in the Grasshopper in Morristown. One of my friends, Richie, his wife, she used to be a part of a brokerage, and she's literally just moved to EXP. We had a big conversation about it. And I said,
Yeah,
maybe I can even get you on the podcast and you and Liam can bully me into trying to join an EXP. And she was up for it.
I am your sponsor.
She was up for it. But it's just something that is for you as well from this perspective is that like you guys, there's benefit for EXP agents to have agents underneath them and for those agents to have to breed success. Does that make sense? So like if
Now
you have
you've nailed it. You've nailed it, Dan. And I am going to jump in here. One, Scott's just texted us back. He's booked in for next week, so that's good. So make sure you come back for next week's podcast where we've got Scott Gunn joining us. Hopefully he doesn't pull out now. But in terms of what you've just said, Dan, that's a really good point. Any of the agents that are listening out there, um, there is this perception of EXP that the agents are recruiters, and I get it. I understand why. I see the posts. I engage with the posts. I get it. Now, Dan, you made a really, really strong, valid point around it. It breeds success. Now, let's say you partner with EXP now, and I'm your sponsor. What I get from EXP's cut of the commission, which is them losing money, they don't have to give me I call it a drink. They don't have to give me a drink for you selling the property. However, that's capped. So in the UK, it works out at maybe 2,500 a year. So if you're selling properties in the UK, all I'm gaining from you is 2,005. It's not even gaining it from you. On how successful you are, I could potentially earn another 2,500. So doesn't that make sense for me to be in your corner? And when you've got any questions, Dan, actually, I do this, mate, in this kind of work. Um, that 2,500 caps every single year if you are successful. If you're not successful, I don't earn anything. So,
this is what I was about to say as well. I was going
so
to say
do I want you to partner with EXP solely because I might make 200 quid or $200 next month? Or do I want you to join because I believe in the platform and I also believe that you'll be more successful with EXP, which then has that kind of counter to it of, but I could also earn 2,500 and not know what properties you're selling.
Correct. But this is what I was about to say to you as well in general. Like, so like let's hypothetically say like, you have a nephew or niece and they're interested in getting into the business, mate, right?
Yeah,
And they're 22 years old and they're like, oh, I've been struggling, I just want to get interested in it. What could happen is, right, if you don't have a team and you don't like, let's say you just get this person and you bring them to EXP because we're talking about them right now. If you brought them in, then ultimately they're going to come in and you're going to say, hey, good, you started your own business. Off you go, go try and find your clients. They don't have the skills that you had when you first got into the business because they haven't been into the army. They're just a young kid off the block that's just coming in and going, I have no idea what I've got to do. What's my morning routine look like? What do my daily activities look like? What do I have to do to generate business? How do I do this? They have none of that idea. They'll sit there for a week twiddling their thumbs, look at market data, which is probably not going to be that helpful in the sense that it's not generating business. And then they're like, oh, after a couple of weeks, they quit. Yeah.
yeah,
Because the cost of the business, being in the business. However, and you don't want that as a person who's brought someone on, right? You don't want to go, oh, let me bring this person on, and I'll just sign them up like they're in like you don't get anything out of that. They don't get anything out of that.
absolutely
There's
not.
no positivity breeded here. So that's why I'm saying like for me a team aspect seems like a great way because then you're not just a person that's brought them on and like now listen there's some kind of benefits for a person who has a downline like you would have, but there's benefits that you're providing them. You're providing them support. You're providing them the structure that they need to have a successful business. You might even have multiple clients that you don't want to deal with because you've got too much going on your plate right now. Because you just said, "Listen, I'm a single person, or I can only cap myself at so many properties because it gets overwhelming once you do that." Well, if you get more people in your downline or in your team, then you can support those people with business. And not only that, you can still make a little off of you're breeding their success,
Yeah,
which is ultimately what the purpose of the
yeah.
downline is.
As we know, we've spoken about it, mate. SEO, massive on it. I will get leads from SEO that just do not fit my portfolio. Yes, I could take them on, I could sell it, but I believe I become a busy fool then. And I also want to be super excited with the properties I'm working with. And ultimately the people I'm working with as well, because I've been to one bed flats in the past where the flat isn't exciting. The individual doesn't really want to connect. They're just like, I want it up for as cheap as possible. I don't want to pay for a service. Okay, well, we're not going to get on here. And I've disinstructed clients before, kind of on different bases, actually. Um, and that's okay to then turn around to local agents. Like there's six agents altogether on the Wirral. Um, the majority of us will speak to each other. There's naturally you'll always find people who just switch off and don't want to engage. They're just doing their own thing, and that's okay. Um, but when we kind of engage with each other, I will phone up, let's say Matt as an example, or Jennifer as a prime example. I'll phone up Jennifer. I've got this listing, doesn't really fit me. I've had this chat with the client. I've secured the fee at this point. Do you want to take it on? And Jennifer was like, absolutely. Hats off to her, mate. She went and marketed it. She got the sale on it. The guy's based out in Israel, not here. We've been able to connect that and keep that chain moving forward. We got the successful sale. On the Teams model, it's probably a little bit different because you've got an office of when Scott comes in next week, I think it's 15. Um, and he might get a property come up where they're not really portfolio specific. It's more how many numbers we've got. And I could go, oh, Dan, you're in CH43. This is yours, mate. I won't touch it. But if you get something in CH61, just make sure that it's coming back around. Um, Interestingly, when you were talking about
Important
kind
to
of,
notice there, right? Because this is
yeah,
something that's a legal thing right here in America. Uh, you said like, hey, this area, your area here,
territory,
yeah, territory sort of stuff. That's completely illegal here.
yeah,
We're not allowed to do that. Like, you can't say like, hey, you're stepping on my toes by coming in this area. Granted, like, don't get me wrong, you can work in a specific area, but you can't like dictate who and can work in an area and who can't work in an area. So like if I had a team member, for example, I can't say like, you're not getting this because you're not in that area, if you know what I mean. Um,
Yeah. So
it,
that's what I like about EXP. So when you join EXP, there are no territories. So there's an agent in Easton called Steve Grundy. He's in my downline. I've sold a property on his road previously. So every
yeah.
day he was walking out and he's looking at my board. Um, but and there's no issues with that. I did phone up Steve and say, look, there's a property coming up on your road. Do you want to go and have a conversation? But then it was obviously the clients I want to work with you.
Yeah.
I get that. With some agencies, they are very territorial. So there is a kind of premium brand in the UK, if I might say, Fine and Country, and I'm pretty sure they are territory focused. So you buy the territory, no other agent will take that brand and work within that area. Now that has pros and cons because if you own the territory for the Wirral, North Wales, Chester, would you know there's not going to be any other agent goes in that area for premium property? That is yours for the taking. Um, it's a big distance to cover, but then having that freedom that I've got, one day I'm in the Wirral, the next day I could be in Yeovil, the next day I could be in Newcastle. It allows us to work around.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's free hats to estate agency or to realtors. I think we've got the us and this is something if you're thinking about launching a business, I honestly believe you need to sit there and think about the moving parts of a business because yes, we've got compliance and we've got kind of the legal side of things with accountants and contracts and what be, but the day to day, I think we've got a finder, a keeper, a doer. Ultimately, as a finder, you need to find new clients, look at opportunities, get the listings, get the business, do what you say you're going to do. We've then got the keeper, and that's managing the money, the relationships, records, existing pipelines, making sure that clients are happy. You've got that point of contact every few days just to make sure that they're in the loop and they're not just sat on the market. And then we've got the doer. If you say you're going to do it, work, execute the work to a high level. We're talking about the calls, the viewings, the follow ups, the feedback, the paperwork, the actual closing deals, helping people move home. That's it ultimately. Um, and I think when people are launching a business, they need to realize, look, just because you open a limited company, or would you call that a corporation?
No, we have LLCs. There's the different for company formulas are like S corporations, C corporations, and limited liability companies. Most people start as a limited liability company because it's the smaller of said, and then each of them have their own different tax advantages
Bracket.
as well.
Yeah. So
But it depends where
so
you end up falling.
so here, like I think a lot of people will launch a business and they'll create a graphic and put it on Instagram, let's say. Instagram's massive on business, so I'm just using that as the example. But they put it there and then it's like, oh, I'm a limited company, I'm legit. People are going to come running to me and say, I want to sell with you. And that's never going to happen. You've got no trust, you've got no kind of proven platform, no results. You really need to put yourself out there, don't you? And that's where that find a keeper doer comes from ultimately.
I agree with you. I mean, I just think that no matter what, when you're in this business and you get opportunities, it's an opportunity to showcase yourself and get some positive feedback that you can then have out there that people will see can, good. I mean, reviews, like we talked about reviews, how important they are, but like the more reviews you have, positive reviews, the better the more trustworthy you are without people coming to
Yeah.
meet you and know you and build that relationship with you. Like you've got more of a trust walking through the door based off of 150 reviews that are 5 stars, and you're walking in with a little bit more of a person that's got their guard more down because they value and see socially that people have wrote nice things about you and how you provide for them.
So
Versus
I
the
was thinking about
opposite.
this the other day, Dan. So I'm on 208 5-star Google reviews, and I'm so proud of that because the people leaving it have obviously had a good experience. They've gone on, they've shared that. Um, but then I've worked with a lot more clients who, and I get it, as much as I say it's 30 seconds, it's an inconvenience to someone's day. as much as it helps me as a business, some people are very comfortable, just like, look, did the job, I'll leave a review. I forgot about it. Whenever he asks, they forget about it again. But then I look at some places where I'm just looking myself. And if a company's got 3 or 4 bad Google reviews, they're actually the ones that I would read and I would take their experience and kind of go, oh, what's mine going to be?
Yeah.
Um, does what's more valuable here, Dan? Is it having 200 5-star Google reviews or having 196 5-star Google reviews with 4 people just sharing their experience, how they felt?
What do you mean? Like, so 196 and four
Like
people
from,
sharing.
from a client's point of view, like if someone went on your Google and left a review that said, um, I didn't have the best experience. We didn't get this deal done. Um, Communication was okay, but it seemed to die down. Like I'd take that to heart and I'd be like, right, I'd actually phone the person up and go, right, what can I do better? And have that conversation.
I think
But
that's the difference, isn't it? There, right there, that you're prepared to go in and have the conversation
yeah,
after the
well,
fact.
I,
But
I
you
remember
don't like.
once.
Go on,
I remember once I got it was a 4-star Google review. So we were in the WhatsApp group, we just
yeah.
exchanged, everyone was dead happy. And I said, look, guys, really enjoyed working with you. I'm so glad we've got to the point now where we've exchanged. I think you've got a great deal, a great property, lovely area. Um, would you mind taking 30 seconds to leave me a review? And I went, yeah, yeah, no worries. And then it literally come through. It was like, you got a 4-star review. And I was like, oh, this is okay. So I read it and the message was great. And I just kind of made a call and went, look, for me, really, really appreciate leaving the Google review. Thank you. Not asking you to change it, but I noticed it was 4-star. Is there anything that I can do different in this process that would make it better, a better experience for yourselves or other clients? And she come back and like, Liam, I clicked 500%. I said, look, it's okay. Like, don't worry about it. And she said, no, I'm going back on and changing it. I was like, thank God for that. Um, and then I did I said, look, I really appreciate it. But was there absolutely anything in this process
Do you know
that I
this
could
is?
change and make
I've
smoother?
got such a funny thing, right? I think, right, that anyone making a review should actually give a 4-star review. And what you've just explained there, mate, makes you 5 stars because you care about going back and finding out what you needed to do to make it better. And that showcases what it takes to be a 5-star review company. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I've never
Everyone
thought of it that
should
way.
give 4-star reviews. And when you go back and you have the decency to have a civil conversation and say, listen, what made that be a 4-star, or a 4.5 star, what if you can do 4.5 stars, what made that be a 4.5 star review? And then as soon as if given the call and say, listen, I just want to learn how I can be a better person. I want to know what that half a star or what that star was missing is. That's the star. The coming
Yeah,
back and wanting to learn what you could have done better is where you earn the 5th star. Do you get what I'm saying?
yeah, yeah. It's
Because
funny
that says
because
everything about your character. It says everything about your character when you want to learn and go back and make sure that your clients, listen, I understand that it didn't maybe meet the mark for some reason. And it's not really that you didn't meet the mark, it's that this is a test to see, are you always looking to strive and improve and be the best in the game?
do you know what? I like that. I never thought of it that way. I thought that was me just kind of asking, what can I do? And I think that is that. Am I like you should be asking these questions? What can I do better? Not what went really well.
Yeah.
What went really well? Oh yeah, you negotiated a great deal and we got moved. That's great. I think that's ego, but being able to ask the ask the question, um, yeah, no, it's important, isn't it?
Yeah. I guess
Yeah,
I just
sorry,
wanted
mate, go
to
on.
circle back with the realtor stuff with the people who join the business, and sort of come into it. I guess like my questions at the start were to do with how do people stay in the business, or what drove you to be able to see the pathway of success. Um, for people here in the US, it's a little bit different, right? I think again, it's all about who you position yourself with, because if you don't have the skills that are gonna like you just said about the three different hats that you wear, if you don't have any of those skills already embedded into going out and doing that, that means you're actively going to do it. You're not having someone say, hey, this is your list of to-dos today, go do it. You got to do that willingly on your own, or
Mm.
implement yourself with a group of people that know that these are the things you need to be doing, and then them tell you like, hey, you should be doing this, 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 and this, and then you having this the willpower yourself to go out and do that too. Um, but coming back to it is kind of like as well, like I wanted to briefly touch on how people don't understand what they're getting themselves into. They think they're getting themselves into a job when really you're getting yourself into your own business. And when you start getting yourself into your own business, there's a whole different avenue of things that you have to learn about that you really don't know about, because if if you're just fresh out of school or whatever, and you went to real estate school, you think you're getting yourself a job like a 9 to 5 job, and you're not. You're really getting yourself an entire business that you've got to go and run. And there are things that are obviously, I don't know about you. And I said this to you before, but I was like, I don't know if you envision, not a lot of people hire an accountant if they're on a 9 to 5 because their taxes are pretty simple. What do you guys call it in the UK again when you get your normal? It's a
Self-assessment.
no, no, like you do your taxes at the end of the year, right? And you get your what's that document they give you for you guys? We call it a 1099 here as a self-employed person, but if you're an employed person, it's a W-2 here. So at the end of the year, your company sends you a document for your taxes, like, hey, this is your end of year statements.
Yeah.
You make your salary was this. This is what we taxed you for your national insurance. This is what we taxed you for your the government, like etc. And then that's what you netted, sort of thing. What's that
Yeah,
document
yeah.
typically called? I can't
Yeah,
remember.
well, that document. So I pay for an accountant, so he does all
That's
of
what
the
I was about to
books.
lead into.
And he's great. He really is, like, he's worth his weight in gold. And for me, I think any business owner should have an accountant because there's so many different moving parts. And when you are launching your own business, you are doing exactly that: lead generating, marketing, getting the sales over the line. Um, well, you are juggling so many balls. Like, there's not enough. The website, social media, um, WhatsApp, going back to go. Like, there's so many different moving parts that I find it really hard to switch off. And I'll be sat there at 10 o'clock at night going, right, I need to do this and need to do that. I think that is the biggest shift in a state agency, um, now that more people are going self-employed because they know they can do it themselves, but they are becoming business owners. And I think that is probably the hardest part about staying in the space. You're juggling a lot of hats. There's a lot of weight on your shoulders. You're accountable to yourself. And you're trying to prove a point that I've bought into the idea of this model of being self-employed and bringing down my overheads each month and helping people move home and giving a better experience, that all of that weight you are juggling. So staying in the industry, you're putting your balls on the line ultimately to prove a point to everyone else who said this isn't going to be possible, it's not going to work. Um, yeah, yeah, there are a lot of working parts, mate.
No, I
An awful.
agree. That's
I
kind of
wish,
what I'm
I
pointing
wish,
at for people getting into the business, isn't it? Like,
yeah, I kind of wish, mate, that and maybe this might be relevant to next week when we've got Scott now because um, he's gonna he's going to talk about the teams model and how he's brought agents in and what the commission split is and how it works. Um, Having a list of what I think I'm juggling day to day because there's an awful lot, and I think that's why. Plus, just I find it hard to switch off. Really,
think
really
about
do.
I just think about how many relationships I have to foster, mate. Like from attorneys relationships to different title company relationships to the inspectors that we work with hand in hand, the partnerships that we create, the local businesses that we want to get involved in so that we can support locally and then so they want to support us locally. Like that's not even talking about clientele. Like then you go and talk about what you do with clients and how you foster those relationships, how you deliver your service to them. All of that is incredibly important, and it's so many hats to juggle, like you say. And then you've obviously got the different avenues as well over here. You've got whether you're a buyer representing as a buyer's agent, whether you're representing as a sales agent. You also got the whole other world of a different game, which is like, hey, are you involved in commercial real estate as well? Which is an entirely different ball game. That from a knowledge perspective, it's like you've got to have a lot of knowledge for all of these different angles in the business. Um, but yeah, and that's kind of what I wanted to just touch base with for new agents. You know what I mean? It's like you touched it, you said it perfectly right there. It's like for me, like I don't know how many people, especially with my own family, right? Because we have a certain background in the UK, and I'm not there at the moment, and I have lead a very different lifestyle maybe now. But like
You're in a totally different world.
exactly. I never really thought about, I don't think my mom ever said to me, like, oh, I have an accountant and my accountant deals with this, that, the other. It was
Yeah.
more like, oh, we get our tax statements at the end of the year and then we like submit it and then like that's it. And then we see if we get money back because we paid too much taxes.
You
Like,
get your tax rebate.
okay. Like that exactly. And that's kind of how like I grew up. But
Yeah,
when,
yeah.
when being here, I know I'm not saying that people are all like that, by the way. That was my personal experience growing up as a kid. And I don't know about that with your parents either, mate. Like, your dad had
Oh,
a
mate,
pretty
getting a
steady
tax
job.
rebate, getting a tax rebate is like Christmas. I think even now as a business owner, if you get a tax rebate, like winner, I'm
Yeah.
getting my money back.
But yeah, so like for me though, it's like it was never, hey, we should get an accountant to know what we should be doing with our taxes. And I think like tax law is not something that everybody's taught about, right? So like that's why it's important to have an accountant. And as soon as anyone owns property, by the way, or an asset, I think you should automatically have been speaking to an attorney and or a solicitor, as you guys call them, and an accountant, just to understand how to manage your asset in the future, like what happens to the asset when you're gone, like simple things like
I
that. You
think
know what I mean?
you've just nailed the point there that it comes down to the understanding. And I think with anything in life, you think about kind of our background growing up. Would a financial advisor have ever been mentioned as a kid?
Would
Do you know
have,
what I mean? Like, would your mum or dad have sat there and just gone, "Oh, I need to speak to this financial advisor about these investments"?
yeah, yeah,
Like to me, it wasn't really a conversation.
no,
And it's the same way that an accountant wouldn't have been in our house, where now it's very much like, look, I need to go and speak to Mark about X, Y, and Z. And I feel like with any industry, financial advisor, mortgage advisor, estate agent, solicitor, accountant, these kind of professional services, when they involve money and service, if people don't understand what they actually do, they don't see the value in paying for it. Where when it comes to like, it could be a financial advisor, people just think, oh, he's just telling me to put money in stocks and shares. I could do that myself. Well,
yeah,
no, they know a lot more to it.
yeah.
Um, when it comes to an accountant, oh, they're just counting numbers and putting it into a system. Like, oh, I've got a calculator. Well, no, like,
Well,
do you know what you can
that's
write off? Do you know what you can claim for? Do you know? It's
yes, that's
that's
my
one of the big
point.
things. I think opening up an estate agency is great. You've got these plans. Speak to an accountant. What what can you do? What can't you do? If you're self-employed from home, can you write off the internet because you're working for like? There's so
Yeah.
many different benefits,
Exactly.
and
That's what I'm trying to highlight to people, that not even people who are trying to get into the real estate space, mate, like just people in general who don't have this knowledge. Yeah. Like
yeah,
and I'll just give you a simpler, like there's loads of different angles to this, right? Like property tax is one over here, which is your council tax. Like is council tax deductible from your income for the year? So, if you were paying £3,000 in taxes and you made £35,000 for the year, can you deduct the council tax from your income and only get taxed on £32,000? Like stuff like that. But like it's with a lot of things, and if you aren't a tax expert, you don't know the rules and the ins and outs of the laws. For example, I bought a Tesla as well, right? So here, when I bought the Tesla, there was tax credits and state credits of like $7,500. That if I take, hey, my VIN number of the year that I purchased the car to my accountant can then deduct my taxes by $7,500. If I go to the state and I apply through the state and ask for this, uh, Charge Up New Jersey EV vehicle rebate. They were giving me 5,000. So I instantly got, $11,500 off the price of my car at the end of year one because Charge Up New Jersey paid me 5 grand and I got 7.5 grand, or sorry, 12.5 grand is what I made. And I got $7,500. Obviously, I didn't make that amount of money. I got a deduction on my taxes by $7,500. So if you hypothetically said someone earned, $100,000 for the year, then now I pay taxes on only 92,500. Like all those things you don't know about. Like, and I think that this is something that people need to be enlightened about a little bit more as well.
Yeah.
Especially people in business as well. So people getting into real estate, this is stuff that they need to learn about too, so that they can operate in the most efficient way and be successful. Because I think all of this entangles success too. Because if you're going out there spending money on your business, and let's say you've saved money to spend on your business, to become a real estate professional, you know, you've got an opportunity to look at profit and losses, and you don't know how that works. Like when I walked into the business, I had no idea about any of this stuff. It wasn't until I got a really good mentor that was like, "Hey, Dan, if you spend thousands of dollars on mailers, that you actually shouldn't be like." And then you look at your earned income and you go, "Oh, but I spent thousands of dollars." You shouldn't get taxed on what you earned. You should get taxed on what the cost of your business is to run, and then what you take as income after the fact. That makes sense.
And again, you've mentioned another kind of profession that people really kind of engage with and see value in. Um, Mentors, like they've walked it, they've done it, even if they've not been super hyper successful in that space, they've then dedicated themselves to going, right, I need to learn X, Y, and Z so I can help other people within kind of my consultancy role as a mentor. And I respect that a lot. But that's life in general. I've always looked at it as if you were learning to play tennis, would you get a tennis coach, or would you, if you're learning to play golf, would you get a golf coach to teach you how to play? Absolutely, you would. Why don't people do it in business? Because people want to believe that they know absolutely everything, in terms of, oh, well, I know I can claim X, Y, and Z. I don't need an accountant. Well, actually, go and speak to them because that accountant's job is the same as my job as an estate agent to save you as many pennies and pounds as possible. Um, so yeah, it's one of those, isn't it?
And I don't know what they
I'm
charge you, by the way, for being your accountant in the UK, but usually whatever you think that you can save yourself, the cost of paying for your accountant, they'll save you more than that.
I pay £96 a month for my accountant,
Okay.
and he's mustard. I know, like with some businesses, you can send a text and or you can phone up and oh, Danny will come back to you, and Danny never comes back to you. I could WhatsApp Mark now, and I would guarantee within 5 minutes he would come back to me with the answer that I need. And what I like about my accountants is I've got a friend who is based down in London. He could not point on a map where the Wirral was. And my friend Matt was going, Liam, you need to speak to this guy. You need to speak to this guy. And I said at the time, like I was like, look, I've got an accountant. I'm happy with him. Um, And then out of nowhere, I was like, actually, I'm going to go and speak to Mark. So I spoke to him, and I was like, we're on the same wave path. Let's crack on. So we did. And then I got two really good mates here who are both in property. Turns out Mark is their accountant. I've got another friend who I've known for maybe 7, 8 years. Mark's been his accountant for over 10 years. And I'm like, oh my God, all these different people. Like that's three different people all in different places within the country. And Mark is their accountant, and he's a bit like us. He caps at a certain amount. Um, but yeah, he's great.
Yeah.
Really, really good. Really good. But I think obviously we're kicking on to nearly an hour now, Dan. So
Yeah.
probably worth wrapping up on the episode. We've got Scott joining us next week. I think that'll be really insightful. I think it'd be good for yourself from an American point of view, who knows that kind of teams model. Maybe have some quick fire questions for Scott.
Yeah.
Um, and we can just kind of go in, have Scott for half an hour, really nail down um, how the teams model works in the UK versus the US. If you're happy with that.
Yeah, no, I would be
Definitely.
really looking forward to that, to be honest with you, just see what how he sort of structures everything, what he does over there and how it works. And also like interesting conversation is like, do they implement potential buyer's agency for what they do down there? And maybe it's something that they could do as well for a
I
team
think
of 15 agents, because that can affect it. If you've got a team of 15 agents, I genuinely think that now you've got a big pool of people that can actually just talk about what buyer's agency is and how it can benefit a buyer.
yeah, I think more people need to do implement buyer agency, even in the smallest of instances of, look, we've sold your home. Let us make the phone call and put the offer in. That's how I think it starts off. We'll make the phone call. If we can get you 10 grand off our fees, this, and we'll take it on the sale. Like, yeah, all day. But yeah, Dan, I think that's a wrap on this episode of Agents Across the Pond. I think we're on episode 13, 14, maybe. Um, but for the listeners out there, if today's conversation has given you something to think about, put into practice, one idea applied is worth more than 10 ideas written down on a piece of paper. If you've enjoyed the episode, really appreciate if you click that subscribe button, leave us a comment, leave us a review, share it with another agent, with someone moving home who you feel will get value from the conversation. We will be back next week for another honest discussion from both sides of the Atlantic. Next week with Scott Gunn, EXP Footprints agent. Until then, keep learning, keep improving, keep raising the standards, and we will see you on the next episode. Au revoir.
Bye bye.